July 22nd. Well, in a way, you don't have transcribe the tape, but I take notes too in case the thing doesn't work. Well, I told you in my letter roughly the things I wanted to ask you about, and primarily about how you discipline yourself as to your time, because everybody is constantly being asked to involve themselves in any and everything, you know. And when do you learn to say no? And how do you decide where you should say no?
Well, I think you learn to say no when your life becomes. There's a call, and
There
I think
it is. But in other words, how can you decide this time it's got to be a case of my family's vacation or dinner on time, or this is some community project I really have to do?
Oh well, if it gets down to family vacation, then that comes first. Family comes first, and I think that's a decision you make. Or for me, I had to make. I did make with no problem very early. When we went to Sacramento, for instance, I told everybody our son was then 8 years old, and I told everybody that I had to be home by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and so no weekend engagements. And everybody kind of went, oh, you can't do that. But it was amazing how quickly everybody adjusted to it. You know, it wasn't that difficult. And I wanted to be there when my son got home from school. And I wanted weekends with my son and my husband, if he was
Available.
So that always comes first. And I think you have to do that if you have young children, because otherwise you'd be an absentee mother, and I didn't want to be an absentee mother.
Well, this was before people became so critical of women who devote their first time to their families. You know, now I think there are a lot of women who are being made to feel guilty if they do put their families first. People say, oh, you're not out doing your thing and being fulfilled or whatever. Did you ever get that sort of reaction?
You mean within myself?
No, from anybody,
other people?
right.
Well, if they felt that way, they didn't let me know.
Well, I think that pressure is just building in recent years.
Yes, I do too. I think it's very... I don't understand that.
Well, I've often, really thought that I'm jealous of people. Now it doesn't matter, my children are all grown up and gone, my grandchildren have even moved off. But I was jealous of people who could stay at home all the time, and then you could do the thing you really wanted to do, whether it was a Cub Scout den mother, which I was 3 years. Did you do things like that?
Well, he was never a Cub Scout. He was never a Boy Scout, so I never came up. If he had been a Boy Scout, I'm sure I would have done it.
I didn't know whether, as a member of the first family, you felt that you could, would, should, or had occasion to do things like work with Little League and that kind of thing.
He was never in the Little League, but if he had been, I would have.
Right.
We tried very hard to keep his life as normal as possible, and I think and thought that was very important, and still do. I think it's a question of priorities. You can have outside interests, and Lord knows I do, and I have a busy life, but family comes first.
When you were an actress, I presume you were disciplined sort of by studio publicists and so forth as to what you should or should not say, and to whom you should and should not see, and that sort of thing. And also somebody would keep an eye on you if you began to gain weight or get acne or do something. They'd tell you about it. But which has required more, I should think, again, as a politician's wife, you probably had to be more careful what you say than as an actress, and also more careful maybe about your conduct and personal appearance, which has required more self-restraint.
Oh, I think the political life is much more difficult
Mm-hmm.
than the other. When I was in pictures for such a short time, and I was never really a career woman as such.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I graduated from college, and I wasn't ready to get married, and you have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
so I became an actress, and it all kind of fell in place very easily for me. There weren't prolonged years of struggling and all of that. But then when I met my husband, that was it as far as I was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But in those days, there was much more. People were much more disciplined.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Actresses certainly were much more disciplined than they are now, and I think they were better off. Yes, you had certainly you had story approval, you had things like that, but you certainly don't have in politics. But I think the question of discipline probably in politics shows itself mostly in when you get into the whole area of criticism of your husband,
Mm-hmm.
and we were never prepared to go into politics.
Mm-hmm.
It was the last thing in my mind, and it was hard for me to take the criticism that I knew many times to be unfair, untrue, unjust, and that took a lot of discipline. And I still don't think I've conquered it completely. I think I'm probably less surprised by it. It still hurts, but I'm not quite as surprised by it as I used to.
I should think it would just take remarkable restraint, to contend with some of the things. Of course, an actress also gets a certain amount of this, and
well, but that's different.
Right.
That's different. That's a whole different. It's in a much smaller sphere, and politics goes much deeper into everybody's lives.
Well, did your family object to you becoming an actress?
No.
Wasn't considered a rather eccentric career?
No, because as I say, they knew as did I. It was not a. I had no burning desire to win an Academy Award or anything. It was a stopgap, and I really have to. It was such a short period in my life that it's almost as if it never happened.
I've seen two of your pictures on television. Do you sit and watch these on the Late Show?
No.
How about your son? Does he see you on the Late Show and say, "Gee, Mom, there you are"?
I guess he's seen me a couple of times.
What does he think about it? I mean, I guess he's proud of the fact you were an actress, or does he think it's kind of funny now?
I don't know. I don't know.
I've heard the story, which I guess is true, that you and your husband met because you were confused with another Nancy Davis.
Oh, yes?
Now, how could this be with the Screen Actors Guild requiring you to register under some name? I wondered about that.
That's my name.
I know
Nancy
that, but how could
Davis.
she also be registered?
Oh, there are lots of Nancy Davises.
They couldn't all register with the Guild, though, is what I meant. She was not registered with the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh yes, there was an extra, which was the Screen Actors Guild, of course, not an actress, not the Screen Actors Guild. But there was an extra named Nancy Davis. There was the wife of a writer named Nancy Davis.
But she wouldn't be in the
No.
Screen Actors.
It wasn't necessarily
Yeah.
a member of the Screen Actors
Yeah.
Guild. It was just another Nancy Davis. I don't know what she did.
I've had this problem lately. Of course, Nancy's not an uncommon name, and Anderson certainly isn't. I don't know all those days. But there was a Nancy Anderson running around town that got me into a great deal of trouble on a couple of occasions. The entrance service, when I came back from lunch, I'd already had a few problems with this person named Nancy Anderson here in yon, but finally, I came home back from lunch when the answering service said to me there's somebody at some number called. Well, I always return calls. I had no idea who this was. I'm glad I returned it. So this woman said, "Are you Nancy Anderson?" I said, "Yes." She said, "How old are you and what do you look like?" And I said, "I'm middle-aged, short, and fat." And she said, "Well, you're not the one." I said, "I bet I know which one is the one. Tell me your story." So she said, I kept thinking, "Who are you, lady?" you know. And she said that a Nancy Anderson had appeared on her doorstep and had wanted an interview, and it said she was from the Miami Herald. And this woman had stalled her off and had called the Miami Herald, and they said they knew a Nancy Anderson because of my column at that time, and maybe still, I don't know, was carried by the Miami Herald. They had not sent her around. So finally, I kept wondering why anybody had come to see this lady. It turned out she was Howard Hughes' cousin, and it was about the time he'd done something sensational. So I had to call the Miami Herald and the Copley and San Diego and all these places and write letters and tell them I hadn't been there. And then I finally tracked down the other Nancy Anderson. And I told her that I couldn't help the fact she used that name. Perhaps it was her name, I didn't know. But that if she ever said she represented anything that ever carried my byline, and she didn't, I was going to take legal action, which I think I was bluffing. I don't think you can, I don't know. And she said, "Well, the thing is, I don't know what carries your byline." I said, "Well, in that case, you're living dangerously." And I don't know what's become of her. The last I heard, she'd gone to Las Vegas. But all that can be very confusing.
Yes, it can.
I was curious, again, as I said in the letter, about any little things you developed, methods for wardrobe, entertaining, and so forth. You have to travel so much. I guess Banlon helps or something.
You know, everybody asks me that, and I wish that I could come up with some marvelous, sensational trick that I've learned. And I have to tell you, I haven't come up with any marvelous, sensational trick at all.
Well, what is the lightest you're able to travel, say, for a week or two? Have you been able to prune it down pretty much? Or do you still just have to...
Well, you know, it's dictated by where you're going to go, how many
Right.
places you're going to go,
Oh, that's true.
how many different kinds of climates you're going to be in. There is no general rule to it. I just have gotten so used now to traveling that I find that it's easier to forget things because you get more careless.
Yeah. Well, you do travel so much. That's what I was wondering, if you had worked out some sort of wardrobe. You know, if you say, "I take 2 suits and 3 blouses and 1
No.
evening dress and whatever," and it
No.
always is enough.
No, I can't say that, no.
I just came back from the Miss Universe contest in El Salvador, and I was staggered by the luggage I saw one of the judges about to take through customs. I was very careful to get into another line. But I wondered what in the world can be in all of these suitcases. Because she'd been in there, I think, about a week. So it was an enormous amount.
Well, I try not to take an enormous amount, but it varies.
What are your favorite? When you entertain, how do you like to entertain best? What sorts of parties?
Like 8 or 10 people. Because usually what we have to do are great big things. If I had my way, it'd be 8 or 10 people.
Do you have pet recipes, something you can put together in a hurry?
I am no cook, but I love to plan. I love to try different things, but I'm no cook.
Who are some of your leading men? The Academy Library is closed. I would have called to find out. They're closed till September.
Oh, well, let's see. Jimmy Whitmore, Ray Milan, Johnny Hodier. gosh, you're going back into a life that was so long ago. Freddie March, Blue Airs.
Now you had a track with them.
Really, it's like, it is like talking about another life. I can't,
Did you ever work, again, back to the other life, for any of the directors who was noted for, I guess, sadism is the word for it? You know, there were a few that were such, okay, John Ford's one, marvelous director, but very, very difficult to work for, I hear.
No.
No.
I had a it was very, very pleasant, very happy. I got in just on the tail end of the L.B. Mayer days at
yes.
Metro. Just in the changeover before Dory Sherry came.
Mm-hmm.
And we still had the Tracys and the Gable and Bob Taylor. It was a marvelous time.
I've just finished reading Sam Mark's book about Mayer and Thalberg. Have you read that? It's very interesting. I like all those books so much. I read Jesse Lasky Jr.'s book, Whatever Happened to Hollywood, and I've just finished this one. And, of course, most of it's about the days of Thalberg's days, so it goes back further.
I just think that the young people today miss an awful lot.
Mm-hmm. I think they do, too, because, again, in this book, it was re-emphasizing the fact that Mr. Thalberg, for instance, when he planned a picture, he had all of these writers from whom to draw, and he could say, this one will do the dialogue for this scene, and this one's very good with humor, he'll do this, and this, and then he had all these stars he could draw from, and all these directors to get just the right one. And now, to begin with, even if somebody, a producer, is able to put all this together, I mean, can envision it, he can't get his talent together. I mean, it's catch as catch can. If you can find any talent.
But the subject matter that they give people, and the only subject they seem to give, they seem to give people, is so downbeat and so, they've taken all the romance away from young people.
Yes, that's true.
And I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, I think that too. I used to tell my daughter, who had soon around about the same age, who at that point was sighing over Sal Mineo, that I had nothing against him personally, but it was so unfortunate that you couldn't be sighing over Errol Flynn and Robert Taylor. I mean, Clark Gable. Sure, all of these really dashing gentlemen who swashed and buckled around.
They were great. And they didn't, there was all the, I don't know, the language and the pornography and the violence. And yes, that's one segment of life, but it's not the only segment of life.
No.
And there is a nobility of spirit, too. But they never show that.
Well, now they have a picture in production at Universal that's going to show that, I hope. I don't say I can fail to, and I certainly hope it makes money Midway, which is the Battle of Midway, of course. And I'm sure you know about just a great cast, Henry Fonda and Glenn Ford and Kishore Mifune and just everybody, just a fine big cast, and it just looks like it's going to be good. I've been on the set a number of times.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
What pictures have you enjoyed lately, or do you even?
I rarely get to a movie. We rarely want to go to a movie. We really don't.
I don't either, and I got all these, invitations to screenings, and every once in a while I think, now I've got to go because this is going to be a big, important picture. And then I go, and I can't wait to get out. I went to the premiere of Tommy. Did you see that by any accident? Absolutely. It was so awful. And I went because I really love Ann Margaret. She's such a sweet girl. And I knew she was really excited about this big thing. And there I went. And she had enough sense not to ask me how I liked it. I guess she could see. And it was over.
It really upsets me. And I don't like the language, and I see no practical purpose for it, and doesn't do anything for the story. As a matter of fact, it detracts from the story.
Greenberg is like that too.
Yeah.
And books.
Negative.
Yes. And you can destroy. You can destroy not only people, but if you enlarge that, you can eventually destroy a country.
I think that I'm afraid that is what has happened. I really am. I'm just almost without hope. Isn't that terrible?
You mustn't be.
Well, I know I mustn't be, but I mean, not without hope personally, but without hope as far as the country's concerned. I just get so sick of the things that are being fed the public, and the public, after they've been fed enough of it, comes to think this is it. This is the way it is.
I know. Well, I think that's particularly true in the young people.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. If they keep
and the older
seeing
people
all
just
this.
stay home.
I think they try to make you feel if you don't become like this, and there's something wrong
If there's
with
something
you,
wrong
so
with
the
you, that's
masses
it.
all decide, well,
Yeah, peer
rather
pressure.
than be an individual, we're going to run with this terrible lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
I know. I'm afraid my granddaughters are going to think if they haven't had abortions by the time they're out of high school that they weren't popular. You know.
I know.
And the show, I don't see any changes, strong enough changes being made to change or to correct where the problem is.
Of course, if people would stop going to the movies, they'd stop making them.
But they
Reading
won't.
magazines or
Yeah.
But they won't stop because, well, for one thing, if this is all they make, people finally, the public taste is finally reduced to this level because this is all they're acquainted with, and they come to expect it.
But I get so I can get so annoyed at the people who make the pictures, because the picture medium certainly is a powerful medium, and once you get into it, you therefore have, or should have, a tremendous sense of responsibility. And they've shown no sense of responsibility, no taste at all, the people who've been making the pictures. Now, of course, there are exceptions.
Right, sure.
There's a Hal Wallace or whatever. But by and large, and they're doing a terrible thing. Just a terrible thing. I'm very glad I'm not a part of it.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, somebody.
And I stop and think, I wonder if they don't realize that they too have children, and they're doing it to their own children also. Don't they realize that?
money must be more important.
Well,
In the business rather than
I wonder about this.
family.
Ryan O'Neill's first wife is one of our closest friends. In fact, when she remarried the other day, my husband gave the bride away, and she used to live with us, and I used to babysit Tatum. And I said to Ryan one time, I said, what would you think if Tatum grew up and went out with someone like you? And this was after he and John was separated. And he said, well, it should be all right, whatever. And he was doing some terrible thing at that time to some girl. Well, Tatum's already going out with people like him. And she's 11 years old. Rock stars and people like that. And I can't understand why he doesn't see what all this group of people with whom he consorts are doing to his daughter. It's really a sad case. Yes. Well, do you have time for any hobbies? Did you do the lovely needle point on the chairs in the other room?
No, my daughter's godmother, Miss Polly Moore, did it.
Yeah.
She did it for my daughter when she was born, and then when my son was born, she said, well, I can't have, how do you have one and Ron not have one, so I've got to do one for Ron.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it.
So she did one chair for one and one for the other? Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. I've been working on a needlepoint chair seat now for about 6 months, and it's not that fine and lovely, but I think I'm about to finish it. I don't know. How old is your daughter?
Our daughter's 22.
My goodness. Is she in college?
No.
Mm-hmm. She shows no signs of being an actress.
No, she's interested in music.
Mm-hmm. On a professional level, do you think, or
I don't know.
do you think your son might act?
No, he's interested in writing.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell him to keep it clean. I'm tired of all these books about kinky people, too.
And so am I. So am I.
Yeah.
So am I.
I get so many of those, and people begin to think of me as a real oddity, I guess. They're about quit inviting me to parties because I'm such a wet blanket there. But the publicist called me the other day and said, had I finished reading Waiting for Mr. Goodbuck? And I said, no. I knew that was one of the hot books. That's the one we interviewed of. He said, you haven't finished it? I said, no, I read part of it, and then I threw it away.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's a very big book. He says, oh, but it's been sold to pictures for this vast fortune. I said, I'm absolutely certain it's been sold to pictures for this vast fortune. I'm sure it is. But I just finished one book like this about people who are on drugs and have perverted sex habits and do all these unseemly things. And I waded through that one, and it's one that's been sold to movies. So then I started this one, and I just thought, I don't have to read about this bunch of people.
No, you don't.
So I do.
No, you don't. That's the marvelous thing. You don't have to.
Well, do you garden? Do you embroider?
I garden. I'm a frustrated interior decorator. We have a ranch that we're fixing up a little old adobe house ourselves.
Oh.
And I managed to keep very busy. No, I don't sew. But we tiled the roof, we tiled the floor, we painted at the little ranch house. My husband built the fences, knocked down the walls. We're having a wonderful time.
Well,
Great therapy.
Yeah. That's, my last question, and I won't take any more of your time. When you do get so depressed and discouraged by situations or by criticism or attacks, or just angry or whatever, what system do you use to sort of compose yourself? You look so composed. Linda and I were talking about that. I said, I think perhaps what reminded me of Shirley Boone, there's a composure about Shirley. She's very serene.
Yes.
Right. And
well, I'll tell
you are too. So what's your system?
I'll tell you what my system is with a specific attack on my husband, and he laughs at me about it, but it works. I take long baths. He always knows when something's happened, and he comes home, I'm in the bathtub, and I carry on long conversations, and I say to the person exactly what I'd like to say to him, but can't, you know.
Oh.
And I'm absolutely marvelous. I'm just marvelous, and he can't top me, and I say everything exactly right, and the way you wish that you could say it, and the things that you always think of after the situation is past, I think of them all in the bathtub. I'm really tremendous in the bathtub. And he can't answer me back, and I stay in there, and I get it all out, and then I come out.
Well, that's good. I think I'll put a bathtub in the office.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
very monosyllabic, very shy. And I thought, well, I'd better make a test, because it's too much of a risk. So I made a test with him and with John Perry, who subsequently became Mrs. Cohen. And on the basis of that test, I thought that he could do it.
Well, who was the girl in the cast of Paramount? What became of her?
I don't know. Some girl, I never saw her.
I just wondered.
But anyway, Harry Cohen even then thought it was insanity. But finally he gave in. He said, all right, be it on your head. You're responsible. So when we told Paramount he wanted Holden for the star part, they couldn't believe him. They laughed. So of course he said that for that you'll have to give me half of his contract, 7-year contract. And they said, sure, certainly. Half of the contract. And he came in something, he was going to get $75 a week. And I told Harry, I said, look, it's disgraceful. The guy plays the star part here. Got to pay him at least $125. Then Bill came in and he said, in films, if you're wearing modern suits, you're supposed to supply your own wardrobe. If it's a period, then the studio makes it. So Bill walked in and he said, they want me to supply my wardrobe. I don't have any wardrobe. So again I went to Harry Bow. He said, well, that's the rule. I said, for heaven's sakes, here's this young guy who's never done anything in his life. Played Santa Claus in Pasadena on one Christmas, he told me. So, of course, we made the suits for him. So the rest is so-called history.
Curl his hair.
But this is absolute nonsense about Barbara Stanley.
I may have heard that from
Say,
Helen
that's so
Ferguson. Who
silly.
knows?
I think what you're possibly thinking of, Irene Dunn and Spencer Tracy and Van Johnson. When he was in
No,
that
I
accent.
didn't hear that one. That's one I've missed all around.
This one I've never heard in all these years.
Well, there you are. I think my favorite of all your pictures, I wish I could sing, it's a terrible habit. My favorite of all your pictures may be High, Wide, and Handsome. I saw that about 4 or 5 times
really?
because it was so romantic and because I liked the song, The Folks Who Live on the Hill.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes. And
No,
that picture do
you're
very-
pretty. Behave yourself.
did that picture do very well with anyone except me? I just loved it.
Yes, I think the picture did very well. It was a very big production, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is
Well, as I say, I just enjoyed so many of your pictures, but that one, I think I was, at a very romantic age at that point, and that just really hit me right when Irene Dunn sang all these nice songs to Randolph Scott.
Dorothy Lamour, wasn't that her first picture, first major part?
No, Cimarron was.
Dorothy Lamour.
Oh, Dorothy Lamour. I thought you said Dorothy Lamour.
It was her first part.
She
That was her
was.
first part?
It was her first
Good
part,
grief, I
yes.
didn't remember her. What did she play in the picture?
The other girl sang.
Good grief, I
Good
forgot
Oh, you
what
must
she played.
remember.
I saw it on 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You certainly are knowledgeable about these things. Well, now, who was in Love Me Tonight? Was that Maurice Chevalier?
And Jeanette MacDonald and Myrna Loy.
Is it true that they did not, the Laskys, well, I guess Mrs. Lasky, is it true she discovered Chevalier and everybody else said, what do you want with that guy? Nobody can understand anything he says? That's another story I've heard. You don't know that one. Well, I don't have to.
What do you
Ask me
mean?
about all these men.
After Chevalier made all those pictures
No.
with Lubitsch?
No, before that when he first came to
Oh, that I
France,
don't
and
know.
Mrs. Lasky had seen him somewhere in Paris and said, we're going to get him.
Well, there's always someone who'll say that. They said that about Fred Astaire, and they said,
Yeah. And
Oh,
that,
sure, yes. Well, that's quite probable and possible that they said it.
Yeah.
But, well, you take Myrna Loy now. I was going to start shooting Love Me Tonight. I was at a cocktail party, and this girl came in tennis shoes, freckled. And they said, Myrna Loy. I said, no, wait a minute. You're not Myrna Loy, the slanty-eyed villainess. She said, yes. I said, well, this is the most ridiculous thing. She said, why don't you be yourself on the screen? She said, nobody will let me. I'm typed. So I said, would you like to get out of that? And she said, I'll give my right arm. I said, come and see me tomorrow at Paramount. So she came in, and I had this small part, and I said, I'll build it up for you a little, but it will give you a start. And of course, she was enchanting in it, and from then on, she became a straight star.
How was Jeanette MacDonald to work with? Was she an easy person to work with or rather temperamental?
You know, this may sound odd to you, but I really, frankly, I couldn't give you one actor or actress that was difficult to work with.
Well, it says something about you, I think, doesn't it?
It's something about relationship between the two. Now, you take MacDonald. We started out with a big blow-up. Because I had her clothes designed, and she came to the studio, and she said she wasn't going to wear those clothes, that she's the one to choose and pick her clothes. So the first scene, well, I said, look, Miss MacDonald, go ahead and pick your clothes and let me see it, and if it's fine, she says, that's no difference to me. So she came on the set, and I thought, well, it's a joke. She was kidding me. You've never seen her, because she was a wonderful girl, but she never dressed well. So I laughed, and she got very angry. I said, well, surely you're kidding. You're not going to like this. And she said, oh, yes, I am. I said, oh, no, you're not. She was serious.
He said, that's what I'm going to wear. I said, okay, then I'm going back to my office. And then when you change into the right clothes that are designed for you, I'll come down. So it took them an hour to convince her. Finally, they called me and they said she's on the set in the right clothes. And I came down and she was just so angry. And of course, it lasted about 3 hours. And we started rehearsing and all that. And from then on, it was just marvelous. I think she was wonderful. And a great sense of humor.
I've heard that from Ruth Waterbury. Did you ever know Ruth? She was a writer here.
Yes, right, yes.
And Ruth said that most people imagine that Jeanette MacDonald was such a staid type person, and that Irene Dunn would be the one who was full of mischief and fun because of the comedy she made. And Ruth said it's quite the reverse. Jeanette MacDonald had a great sense of humor, and Irene Dunn was more staid.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, that might work with McDonald.
You know, at the risk of shocking you, as an example, for instance, I had Charlie Butterworth and Charlie Ruggles in the film, the two comedians. When you have comedians, they're always, always working at comedy. So Butterworth had never met Miss McDonald. Now I'm on the set with Jeanette MacDonald, and Charlie Ruggles brings Butterworth over. You remember Butterworth?
Oh, certainly, absolutely.
And he says, Miss McDonald, may I introduce Charlie Butterworth. So you know Butterworth, funny guy, shook her hand, and he said to her, I hear you're the best lay in town, is that true? So help me. Without blinking an eye, Jeanette said with a smile, of course, ask any electrician. So, got it down.
Yeah, she did have quite a sense of humor. As you think of your, look back of your career, which picture do you remember as the one that was really the most pleasure to make? Is there anyone that stands out above others?
Several. Every time you ask me about my favorite picture, I can't tell you. About 8 of them are my favorites. They're all different. See, there's such different subjects and different treatment. And so each had a joy of its own.
Well, if any one of your pictures could or had to be thrown away and never seen or heard of again, which one
That I
would you
could
choose? Which one?
The only one. I wouldn't throw any other away.